because of you.
Hi there, Cindy Dole here. Good afternoon to you. This is Home Wizards, your radio home for all things home, garden, and life improvement. It's a really nice day out there, and I'm so glad that you're spending part of it with me because this is where we talk about the spaces that you call home. And do you love them? Is there an area right now that you can just think about, or you're maybe in it, and you kind of go, I kind of wish I could just click my fingers and change it somehow. Or maybe you're in the process of working on it right now. Maybe you're working in the garden, but where do you start and how? I know you've got the questions. This is the show where I hope to help you make the dreams come true, starting with knowing your options and getting the answers and finding out what you really want to surround yourself with, what to fix, what to just dump out, replace, and remove, and how to truly enjoy the spaces you call home, whether it's inside or outside, and prioritize what's out there. So coming up on the show today, which I got to give you heads up, is slightly shorter because we have a Clippers game. So I'm packing in as much as possible to get you the ideas. We're here till 3:30, so don't move just in a minute. So stick with me because I don't want you to miss a second. First, we're going to talk about how to bring succulents, something that kind of reminds me from under the sea, to your garden inside a container. Now, the best part about this, it can be so simple. And when they're in a container, they can be really a lot more flexible because when you think about it, they're planted in the soil. A lot of things can sometimes go wrong. They could be overwatered. But wait a minute, maybe you overwater your containers. We're going to learn about that, but even more importantly, how to make them look so beautiful with the right colors of succulents and the right colors of containers. And that's going to be so much fun. Then a little bit later on, we're going to talk about really some stunning makeovers, but also practical for your family and your budget. I know you've seen this guy on TV all over. Designer Steven Saint-Onge, he's with us to help us walk through the process of not only how to make your home beautiful, but just, realistic for your own family. And he's going to give us some tips on a weekend makeover, how to do something really right now that may not even cost you a cent. It basically talks about getting things out of the existing room you want to focus on, and then how to kind of make it all better. So we're going to learn that today. And then later, we've been talking about edible gardens quite a bit the past couple of Saturdays. In fact, someone called in to ask what to do to keep their dog from getting to it. Well, it got me thinking, and I thought, we've got deer, and maybe for you it's rabbits and raccoons or some cute critter that isn't so cute, when they munch on your stuff. We're going to hear about some of the different techniques and solutions that work or don't work, those that are organic and are animal safe, and this one particular group that does a lot of research and how they feel they compare to other remedies. So keep the number handy, 888-KFWB-980, 888-539-2980. And before we get to my first guest, if you don't follow me on Facebook yet, I hope that you do, because just the other day, I went to the Pasadena Showcase House that is well underway, this renovation. And, it's opening up its doors in April and goes on for about a month. And we'll be talking all about it and giving out tickets and broadcasting from there. But I always like to take a sneak peek. And we shot a little behind-the-scenes video, which I'm going to be sharing with you probably later this week. But in the meantime, you can go to the Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com/follow Cindy, and you can see all the pictures that we took. I mean, you're going to just love. The garage is such a standout. They have a plasma TV in there. I mean, it's kind of like a man cave. It's a 3-car garage, and they have kind of a splash of really beautiful red paint in there, and they restored the wood, and there's going to be a bar in there. They've got all the tools and cabinetry and storage, and it's just decked out. And it goes on the outdoor kitchen, so you're going to learn a lot, but check out the pictures to see how things are coming along at Facebook.com/follow Cindy. And while you're there, by the way, you can also email me to win a couple of books that are tied to today's guest. Just again, go to the Facebook page. Now, one more thing. It's been really frightening hearing about the earthquake and the tsunami that followed out in Japan and everywhere. So this is a good time to make sure this weekend that you really are safe with your earthquake stuff. And we talk about it a lot here in the show. So just go to my website, cindydole.com. We have a kit that you can print out, all the information and things that go into the kit in the blog. So when you get to the site, when you go into the search bar, just put in earthquake safety or earthquake kit, and you can either listen to the experts that we've talked to before and what you need to do and how to respond and the stuff to keep in your home and your car, or you can also print it out. So do that today and tomorrow because it's no time like the present. So let's get started with everything you need to know to combine plants and nurture succulents in containers of all kinds. Woo! That's Seth. He pulls them out, those great songs. Yes, this is one of our favorite songs. You saw it in Finding Nemo. Well, I had to have this tune because doesn't this just remind you of something under the sea? They remind me of, really, creatures at the bottom of the ocean. When you plant them in the ground, you get just as much satisfaction, but I think even more so planting succulents in containers. Succulents, that's what looks like it's under the sea, right? And so right now we're going to talk about just how stunning they can be when you pair the right colors of succulents with the right colors of containers. I mean, for instance, think about aqua blue, a glazed pot with this silver and light green succulent that's kind of just poking over and dazzling over the rim. Or what about this terracotta urn? And then you have that donkey tail that kind of has that pale green color, or that silver and pink just kind of cascading over. Or one of my favorites is Sticks on Fire, where it's that succulent that looks like the range of colors like it's on fire. It has yellows and reds and oranges and pinks. And anyway, the list goes on. Debra Lee Baldwin salivates at all this stuff because she is an incredible, not only a great author and an artist, but she also is a passionate gardener. In fact, earlier today, she was out in the garden. Debra Lee Baldwin, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Cindy. And oddly enough, guess what I was doing down in the garden?
You were working on the succulents.
I was putting some cuttings into a container that I have on an elevated stand. So I wanted some height, kind of an explosion coming up and then something trailing over, and I wanted bright colors. And I decided to do a red, yellow, and blue composition. Because sometimes, primary colors really look striking together. So I combined the blue senecio, which is true sky blue, and that's commonly called, chalk fingers sometimes.
Yeah. I was going to say, we could use more of the common names. That kind of helps.
Unfortunately, a lot of succulents don't have common names.
Yeah, well, we can make one up.
Don't think I haven't. And then there's the aloes often will redden, and they'll turn such gorgeous bright oranges and deep crimson reds. And so there's a particular aloe that looks sort of like a big starfish that I tucked into the arrangement. And then for the yellow, I've been giving some thought to that because this is going to be in a full sun location, and there's so many different options. But I think I'm going to go with a kind of jade plant that will really turn a beautiful, bright yellow with orangey red margins. And you have to put it in full sun because if you let even a little bit of shade get on it, it'll revert to green.
It is interesting how certain succulents, because succulents and cacti come from all over the world in different exotic places, whether it's a rainforest or it's, smack dab in the Mojave Desert, but different ones have different needs, and often they can be really tender. And when you think of the word succulent, that means that it can hold a lot of water to overcome the elements, right?
Yes. Well, that's certainly very true. There is such a broad range of succulents. Oh, my goodness, Cindy. They range from, little tiny, delicate ground covers with leaves about the size of a grain of rice to big, tall, hunkin' dragon trees, the Dracaena dracos that are just, immense with huge limbs. And, they're almost Dr. Seussian. So there's everything in between, and there are succulents that are completely frost hardy. No problem. They'll go below zero. Mm-hmm. And then there are those that even, the faintest whiff of frost, and they faint like a Victorian lady.
The kind of high maintenance. But the good part about having them in containers is either way. We have some of them where we habitually then will bring them in either closer to our house,
exactly.
In the colder weather, even though in Southern California it's not that cold that often. But, every now and then we get kind of a cold night.
Well, see, exactly. And my first book, Designing with Succulents, came out in 2007. And that was, and it spent 19 weeks on Amazon's list of the top best-selling gardening books. And it really took off because of the huge interest in using succulents in landscape design. And that book is primarily for in-ground planting, so it's ideal for Southern California, for our area, up and down the coast. But then the sequel to that, Succulent Container Gardens, which came out last year, and also, by the way, was named by Amazon one of their top 10 books of 2010 in the category Home and Garden. That book takes the whole concept of succulents into the regions where, maybe you're a little bit borderline. You have to be a little bit more careful, and you can move your containers under shelter.
You can control it. So hold that thought just a second. We're going to have you help us figure out how to master and visualize the colors like you were talking about, using primary colors, or how can you really get all these different succulents and put them in the right containers to really make it a living work of art. We're talking with someone who knows. She's the author of this great book called Succulent Container Gardens. I'm Cindy Dole, Home Wizards. We're back in a bit here on KFWB News Talk 980.
And deep as a river, come rain or come shine.
So that's what's so cool about succulents, is that they really, for the most part, aren't that particular. I mean, they just give and give. Cindy Dole here, Home Wizards, and if you haven't tried succulents in a container yet, or maybe you have and you've been just kind of puzzled, how do you do it even better and kick it up a few more notches so it looks like those designer containers, this is what we're finding out right now. I'm talking with really one of the queens of succulents. She has written this great book called Succulents in Containers, Debra Lee Baldwin, and her website, by the way, is debraleebaldwin.com. So, Debra, one of the theories that you lay out right out of the bat is to create that unexpected look. Think like a florist or a landscaper, and that's to do what? Contrast, repetition, color, pattern, and texture, and what else?
Well, good point, Cindy. Absolutely. Of course, there's all different styles of succulent container gardens, and the floral style arrangement is one of the very most popular because it combines a lot of rosette succulents and really packs them into a container so you get a very lush look. And because, the name rosette implies looks like a rose, and there are a lot of, there's echeverias and aeoniums and just the little aloes, all of those, even the sedums have rosette-shaped leaves. They form that little whorl, which just looks a lot like a flower. So when you're doing that, one thing to keep in mind is you want to pack the container pretty tightly with plant material. And I've made this mistake myself. God help you at a potting demo and with an audience, and you don't have enough plants. So always plan on half again as many cuttings or small rooted succulents
for those nooks and crannies. Yeah,
for those nooks and crannies.
But before we even get there, I mean, what always baffles me is which comes first, the pot that we choose or the succulents that we love?
Question. I have to say, I kind of like to start with the pot, but
because the pot, I'm just thinking that bright turquoise or that cobalt blue, or it goes on and on.
Well, I think you kind of want to start with the pot because pots are actually a little harder to find than the plants. You'll always be able to find a plant that looks good with your pot, but you may not always be able to find the perfect pot for that spot in your outdoor living.
You mean we may not have a pot to plant in?
Listen to you.
I'm sorry. But yeah, we can. We're going to pick the pot first, and then, because here's the other thing that you point out in your book, it's a good idea to have the pot and the plants available together, and you can kind of play. And so maybe if you buy this great pot, whether it's at an antique store or wherever you go, take it with you to the nursery. Is what you suggest?
Absolutely.
Maybe. Yeah.
Or when you're at the nursery and maybe you find a fantastic plant, and you want to see what it might look good with, you can also kind of do the dressing room thing, where you're walking around with your plant and trying it on different pots, just plunking the nursery pot right into the pot. Mm-hmm. But start with your outdoor living area. What's going to look good there? You're furnishing that. You're accessorizing that. So once you decide what color glazed pot's going to look good there, maybe it matches the trim on your house, maybe it matches the cushions that you put into your outdoor sofa or glider, then take that with you to the nursery and walk around and start seeing what plants are going to look good in it. And you're going to be surprised. How many plants can you think of, Cindy, that are actually blue or lavender?
Or black.
Foliage.
Or black,
or a burgundy so dark it's almost like the Aeonium Zordkop.
And I love the idea of doing the unexpected for not only the succulent, but the container itself. For instance, clam shells or some cute little knick-knack thing. You use a toy wagon in one of your images. It can just go on and on, from flea markets to things you have around the house.
Exactly. In fact, one of my favorite places to shop for pots are secondhand stores and garage sales.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it's more of a challenge. You know, you take that to the nursery, and maybe it's got a great texture, and you can play off that texture using, as you mentioned earlier, contrast and repetition. So if you've got a really fuzzy succulent like the panda plant, the tomentos kalanchoes, then you might want to go with a pot that's also got kind of a nappy texture. Not actually soft, but that sort of looks like it's roughened up, or that's very smooth. And then that kind of emphasizes, by contrast, the texture of the plant.
And what if someone says, but I'm colorblind, or I'm really not, an artistic person. How do I know what contrast is? What would be a way to kind of help them get smarter and have that natural eye for it?
It's funny how quickly people come up to speed. I give potting demos, and I talk about this very thing. And I'll say, well, is this a blue-green or is this a yellow-green? And it's kind of important to decide which family you're going to go with when you start combining greens, because not all plants are strictly green. And people, when you open their eyes to it, they get it. And it doesn't take any talent whatsoever, although it does help a little bit to understand the color wheel. Because if you're saying, contrast to blue, and they picture the color wheel, they're immediately going to know that the color complement of blue is orange. And so their mind will immediately go to, maybe the sticks on fire is going to look really interesting in this blue pot. But that's about it. And I think we all learned the color wheel in grade school, so it's not.
Need a refresher course.
Yeah,
and the repetition idea is so simple but so elegant. Like, I think of the rooftop of the Getty Museum, and that repetition of all those little round barrel cacti that look like something from Mars. And you show a couple of illustrations in your book where there's that same succulent in that same container. Maybe you get 10 of them.
Well, and I often call barrel cacti my secret weapon, because, people tend to have this attitude toward cactus that, ew, not in my garden. True, who wants to garden around an unfriendly spiky plant? But with the barrel cactus, make an exception, because you group those in, like threes, and look at it not as a cactus, but as a sphere, as a highly textural, fuzzy sphere. And then it's got that wonderful color of yellow, and if you squint at it, you can see stripes because of the ribbing, and it's an incredible design accent that gives you that repetition and contrast all in one tidy little package.
And we can't forget the top dressing, because
Absolutely.
that's the bling of all this.
Bling, totally.
From rocks to glass, and how do you figure out the right color of that after you've planted it and you have the perfect layout and you have the right succulents? How do you what makes you go with white versus blue versus
you don't
brown?
Go with white.
Pardon me?
No, you don't go with white unless you want it to look like snow.
Okay.
Yeah, white, as you know, is probably the color, if you can call it a color, that stands out more than any other in the garden. So anytime you put white in your garden, be sure that you want white there, because the eye is going to go to it like a hound after a meatball. It's like, hello, look at me. Why do they make risers white? So people don't step on them, I guess. But I've gone around to the risers in my garden and spray painted them khaki, so they don't show up. Otherwise, you get these white sticks where you don't want them. But point being, when you're doing a top dressing, and by top dressing we're talking about, maybe smooth pebbles or crushed rock or gravel, that you put in a container composition to cover the bare dirt. Just like in a garden you would cover the bare dirt with mulch, or in a succulent garden with an inorganic material like gravel. That puts the finishing touch. So basically what you want to do is you want to conceal the dirt, and don't call a whole lot of attention to the top dressing unless you really want to, unless you really mean to. In other words, maybe you want crushed tumbled glass, because it just adds a cool, elegant repetition of something else.
Or it could be a table pot. I've seen these really low, bowls, low-lying bowls where you have almost sequins, and it looks like diamonds on top. But let's tell everybody your website and your book again, because it's too beautiful to not see it and get it. It's Succulents in Containers, and the website is DebraLeeBaldwin.com. And Debra, I want to have you back again, okay?
Oh, you bet. Thank you.
You got it. And don't forget that when you do get the container, make sure you have a drainage hole. Succulents do not like to sit in water. because otherwise you're just going to suffocate. Don't do that. Up next, we're going to see the home makeovers on TV that are really for real. Designer Steven St. Onge is going to join us and tell us how to make that room makeover that's suitable for your family, suitable for your budget, and something you can do this weekend. Cindy Dole, Home Wizards on KFWB News Talk 980.